We're doing something that's a little bit unique compared to what others were doing, and we're doing that based on what we learned when we had our students in person in November. We were privileged to have our students back, actually our elementary students, we started back, I believe it was October 25th, and we had them in the in-person option for 3 weeks. And then we had our secondaries join them in the month of November. And they ended up being in for 1 week. But during that point in time, that allowed us to learn what some of our successes and challenges were for the in-person instruction. And we learned that there were some issues at the elementary as far as classroom or the lunches. When students were eating lunches, those were exposure issues, which, we recognized that going in, but then had some strategies and whatnot. But because of the number of students, at that point in time, we were serving over 80% of our students in an in-person option, and the ability to, get the social distancing, we looked at that as one of the issues. So when we brought students back, we made some changes with that. One of the other things that we recognized is that when we had our specials teachers go from room to room, in our elective classrooms, that created some exposure issues. So if one of those elective teachers, say, was COVID positive, then they potentially could impact 3-4 classrooms. All those classrooms would have to go to remote. So what we did is we looked at how can we try to provide the most continuous schedule for our elementary students. And we did that by looking at a morning session in person for those that chose the in-person option. So what that means is our elementary students get a 4-hour and 15-minute morning session, and they are in person, and the focus is on the core and IEPs for those students with IEPs, but the focus is on the core. And then students would, as they leave, we'll use Monday for example. So they leave on Monday at approximately 12:15 or 12:45, depending on if they're an early start or a late start, which, we had to manage all the busing and everything too. But when a student leaves on a Monday afternoon, they get their lunch for that day in a grab and go setting. So, a paper bag, lunch to go if they choose to get lunch, but they also get their breakfast for the next day for Tuesday. So they grab, 2 meals. They go home either through our transportation or their own family transportation or their walkers. They go home, they eat their lunch at home, so we don't have the exposure potential at school. And then in the afternoon, we have in their Seesaw accounts some independent activities that they can do with their family. So they can do those immediately after lunch, they can do it before lunch, they can do it at 7 o'clock at night. But it gives some autonomy to families as to how they want to continue the education. And so the afternoon session is a remote, and it's asynchronous, and so they do that with their families. It's the specials, and it's social emotional learning that we're putting in their accounts.